They found a conductor's pocket watch near the dry riverbed outside Alamogordo in the spring in 1903. Silver casing, cracked face, stopped forever at 11:47. Engraved on the back, "To Samuel, may your time mean something." But the story behind it began 13 years before that night, when a man named Samuel Cord boarded the westbound 415 out of Santa Fe with blood on his hands, and a train ticket he never planned to use. The year was 1890, and he was running from the only thing a man can't outrun, himself. The deep, gravelly desert stretched out like God's own graveyard. Endless, indifferent, scorched clean by sun and silence. Samuel Cord sat in the last car of the train, hat pulled low, collar turned up despite the heat. His knuckles were split, his shirt stained rust brown at the cuffs. He didn't look at the other passengers, didn't need to. A preacher with kind eyes, a widow clutching a Bible, a child staring out the window at the mesquite shadows racing past. Samuel knew what he looked like to them, a drifter, an outlaw, something broken the West had chewed up and spit out, and they weren't wrong. 3 days earlier he'd been a different man, Marshal Samuel Cord, badge pinned proud over his heart, sworn to uphold the law in a dusty frontier town called Bitter Springs. But badges don't stop bullets, and the law don't comfort a dying man in your arms. His deputy, a kid barely 20, named Thomas Brennan, had taken a round meant for Samuel during a saloon shootout. Died on the floor while the piano kept playing. Last words he said, "Tell my sister I tried to be brave." Samuel had promised, but he never made it to that door. Instead, he tracked the shooter to a canyon camp outside town. Found him by firelight, laughing with his gang, counting stolen money. Samuel didn't announce himself, didn't offer surrender, just walked into that camp like death in a duster and put 3 men in the ground before the 4th one ran. By morning, the town knew, and Samuel knew what came next. Questions, trials, inquiries into whether it was justice or murder. So he pinned his badge to Thomas Brennan's gravestone and bought a one-way ticket west, to El Paso, where men disappeared. The train rocked through the dusk, iron wheels singing their lonely song. Samuel watched the land slide past, bone-white arroyos, twisted Joshua trees, the skeletal remains of old mining camps. The preacher approached him around sundown, moving slow, careful, sat down across from Samuel without asking. "Heavy conscience rides a man hard," the preacher said softly. Samuel didn't look at him. "I didn't ask for company." "No, but I reckon you need it all the same." Silence stretched between them like barbed wire. Finally, Samuel spoke. "You ever kill a man, preacher?" "No." "Then you can't help me." The preacher smiled, sad and knowing. "Maybe not, but I've buried plenty who thought running would save them." He stood, placed a small wooden cross on the seat beside Samuel. "Peace ain't a place, son. It's a reckoning." He walked away, leaving Samuel alone with the cross and the dying light. They were 2 hours from El Paso when the storm rolled in. Black clouds boiled over the mountains like smoke from a wildfire. Lightning cracked the sky open. Rain hammered the train windows so hard it sounded like gravel thrown by angry ghosts. The train slowed, then stopped. Samuel looked out into the darkness. Through the rain-streaked glass, he saw it. A rock slide across the tracks. Boulders the size of horses. Mud thick as gravy. They weren't going anywhere tonight. The conductor announced they'd wait till dawn. Passengers groaned, settled in. But Samuel couldn't sit still. He grabbed his coat and stepped out onto the platform between cars. The wind tore at him, rain soaked him in seconds, but he didn't care. He needed air, needed to feel something other than the weight pressing on his chest. That's when he saw her. A woman standing in the doorway of the next car, dark hair plastered to her face, eyes that reflected lightning like broken mirrors. She was holding something, a photograph. Samuel's breath caught. She stepped closer, rain streaming between them, held up the photograph so he could see. It was a young man, smiling, proud, wearing the deputy's badge. Thomas Brennan. "You're Samuel Cord," she said. Not a question, a verdict. He nodded slowly. "I'm Mary Brennan, Thomas's sister."
They stood in the rain, two strangers bound by grief and guilt. Mary said, "He wrote to me about you, said you were the best man he ever knew, said you taught him what it meant to wear that badge." Samuel's throat closed. "I got him killed." "No!" Her voice cracked like thunder. "He chose that life. He knew the risks. He was a kid. He was a man. And he died doing what he believed in. You think running away honors that?" Samuel looked down at his hands, still split, still stained. "I killed 3 men because of him. Didn't give them a chance. Didn't follow the law. I became the thing I swore to fight." Mary stepped closer, close enough that he could see the pain in her eyes and something else, understanding. "You ever loved someone so much it burned hole in your soul?" she asked. Samuel's voice broke. "Love don't burn, ma'am. It just don't die easy." She reached into her coat and pulled out something small, pressed it into his palm. "Thomas's badge. He'd want you to have this, not as a reminder of what you lost, but what you still are." Lightning split the sky. In that flash, she saw her face fully, not accusing, not forgiving, just human, just broken in the same way he was. "The train ain't going to El Paso tonight." Maybe that's the point. Dawn came slow and gold across the desert. The rock slide was cleared by mid-morning. The train prepared to move again, but Samuel Cord wasn't on it when it pulled away toward El Paso. He stood on the empty platform with Mary Brennan beside him, watching the train disappear into the heat shimmer. In his hand, he held Thomas's badge. In his pocket, the conductor's watch he'd bought in Santa Fe, a reminder that time still moved, even when you felt stuck. "What will you do?" Mary asked. Samuel looked east, back toward Bitter Springs, back toward the grave and the questions and the reckoning waiting for him. "Face it," he said simply, "whatever comes." She nodded. Thomas would be proud. Maybe he'd just be glad I stopped running. Mary smiled, small, sad, real. "That's the same thing." They walked together toward the town of Alamogordo, where Samuel would send a telegram back to Bitter Springs, where he would tell the truth, where he would let justice or mercy decide what came next. Behind them, the desert wind whispered through the creosote and sage. The train's whistle echoed one last time, then faded into memory. Some men run toward El Paso, others run from it. But the bravest ones stopped running altogether. They found Samuel Cord's pocket watch near the dry riverbed outside Alamogordo in 1903, 13 years after the train that never reached El Paso. The man who found it was a young sheriff from Bitter Springs, making his rounds through the territory. He'd heard stories about Marshal Cord, the lawman who'd faced trial, served his time, then returned to wear the badge again, who'd spent a decade keeping the peace in a town that had almost broke him,
who died quiet in his sleep at 56, still wearing Thomas Brennan's badge. The sheriff held the watch up to the light, read the inscription, "To Samuel, may your time mean something." He smiled, pocketed the watch, and rode on. Because in the West, time doesn't heal all wounds. But sometimes, if you're brave enough to stop running, it gives you just enough to make peace with them. They say the West keeps its secrets, every scar, every promise, every whispered trail. Some rode for vengeance, others for love. But a few just rode to find peace beneath the dying sun. Samuel Cord never made it to El Paso that night, but he found something better on that storm-soaked platform. He found his way home. Would you have done the same? Subscribe for more tales from Whispering Trails under the Wild West limits.